So why don't we talk about tonight's Game 7 and then maybe get your opinion on the upcoming Bruins-Penguins series as well. We'll try to focus around those two things. So tonight you got Game 7 between the Red Wings and Blackhawks. Chicago takes Game 1, then loses 3 in a row. Now it's 1-2 in a row, and here we are. So when you look at this series, what is going on? What is with the roller coaster ride of this series?
Well, the biggest surprise to me is that Chicago took Game 6. Before the series started, I went out with a couple of buddies for Game 1, and I said, Detroit will split the first two. They'll win the next two at home. They'll lose Game 5, and they'll win Game 6, take the series. Because I don't know if you remember, but we were talking about this maybe mid-season towards the end of the year when Chicago was on that big roll and they were just killing people, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you asked me if they were the favorites to win the Cup at that point. And I said I'd be looking more towards the team that had to win a few games to get into the playoffs, And Detroit's a perfect team for that. I mean, as soon as they had to go on that 4-game tear and they did it to get into the playoffs, that was my pick right away to win the Cup. So I think they're going to take tonight 3-2 in Chicago and go on to beat the Kings, then go on to win the Cup over the Penguins.
Wow, so you like Detroit that much, huh?
They're just more experienced. They're a grittier team. Chicago's kind of, not that they've had it easy, but things have been coming easier to them this year. They haven't had to play gritty, get down and block shots, fight in the corner hockey. Things have just been coming their way. Detroit, on the other hand, they have a gritty team, Franz, and they got these big guys who can work the corners, who aren't afraid to block shots, and they've had to do it for the last 2 months.
Okay, I could definitely see what you're saying. I mean, it's a change in attitude or style of play. That's a pretty big change. That's something you almost would want a whole off season to adjust to. Going from a finesse, everything come easy type of style to get down and be grimy and gritty and physical. I mean, that's almost like an off-season implementation type of situation. Now, when you look at the series itself between Chicago and Detroit, what sticks out to you the most right now? Like, when it comes down, is it the goaltending? Is it the offense? Like, pretty much what I'm trying to get to is, when you watch these two teams play each other, what are you noticing that separates them? AKA, what separates
If you watch, the 3 games that Detroit won in a row, and you see how frustrated Taves was, that's kind of a big factor as to what Detroit's been able to do to Chicago. Just frustrate the heck out of them. Taves has been off his game up until the last couple, but Zetterberg's been able to get under his skin. I mean, he's doing things he doesn't normally do, hacking him in the shins after a play, or, not being able to keep his feet after Zetterberg hits him. He's so mad. So they've just been able to frustrate him and get under their skin and just grind them out. It's all about grinding them out in the playoffs, and Detroit knows how to do that. A guy like Franzen, he doesn't play well until the playoffs come around. I was actually in Detroit a couple of weeks ago, and the Red Wings fans all say he's a lazy player during the season, and all of a sudden the playoffs, he just turns it on. And that's a factor that a 7 seed, it helps a 7 seed when the playoffs roll around.
Yeah, I could see why you'd say that. That's for sure. Now, I'm looking at you had Detroit's goalie over the 3-game win streak that they had save 86 out of 88 shots. And then in the last 2 games, he's given up 8 goals. Is that do you think
Jimmy Howard? The guy's amazing at times, and then he's just shaky sometimes. It's weird, and you can see it in his eyes when he's going to be shaky. You can see the nerves start coming up. I just think in some situations, he gets a little nervous, and as a goalie, that's not the best thing. But I think he's got the best captain in the league in Zetterberg, and I think he's going to be able to rally behind his team.
Now, do you consider Detroit the better team or just the tougher team that fits playoff hockey?
As far as playoffs go, they're the better team.
So who wins tonight then?
I got Detroit 3-2.
He's got Detroit 3-2, then Detroit beating the Kings, and then Detroit beating the Penguins in the Stanley Cup. Rally.
Yeah, I mean, I got to go with my pick from the beginning, right? I mean, if I pick them I can't change it now just because Chicago's had a good couple of games against them.
I'm taking Chicago tonight. I'm going to take your score, 3-2. And I still think we're probably looking at a Chicago-Pittsburgh final. Listen, I still think Pittsburgh's the favorite to win it all. I don't think that's any stretch to even say that, but I just look at that team, and, I mean, between all the veteran leadership they have, they just have unbelievable people on that team, and they're getting a lot better goaltending out of Volkun than they were getting out of Fleury early in the playoffs. I really just think Pittsburgh's going to be...
I wouldn't be upset to see Pittsburgh win it, and that's the first time you'll ever hear me say that because, I don't like seeing guys like LeBron James and Sidney Crosby win titles. I like to see those guys struggle for some reason, But that's just my weird mental state. But they have Iginla on their team, and I've always been a big Jerome Iginla fan, so to see him end his career with a Stanley Cup ring would be awesome. And Sidney Crosby right now, he had to miss a few games. I mean, he's got the freshest legs in the playoffs, and that is dangerous. Be careful. But I just think that Detroit's going to be, if Detroit can get there, I think they're going to be able to grind them out in a 7-game series.
Now, speaking of Pittsburgh-Boston, I mean, we saw, Boston for the most part handle the Rangers. Pittsburgh for the most part did what they had to do. Now, for the most part, when I look at this series, I feel like you're looking at very contrasting styles. I feel like Pittsburgh's more finesse and offense, where Boston is more of a defensive team that takes advantage of opportunities. Do you think that's a fair way to look at this series, or would you say that maybe it's a little different?
It is a fair way to look at it, but if you want to compare, say, like a Pittsburgh to Chicago, Pittsburgh has a few more role players on their team, a few more guys who are going to grind it out in the playoffs, get down and block shots. And, they just have – and they've been there, I mean, Boston's won the Cup recently and stuff, but, I mean, you have Crosby, and these guys are going to do – especially they all – as soon as Iginla came into the locker room, he was just a presence. And they're all going to do whatever it takes to get that man a Stanley Cup.
So, who do you like when it comes to do you like how Boston, right? Boston's sticking with Fleury? No, Pittsburgh. Why am I mixing that one up? Do you like the fact that Pittsburgh's sticking with the goaltender, or do you think they should be switching it up again? I know they're winning, but almost like the mindset of, well, do we stick with the guy that got us to this point, to the playoffs, or do we stick with the guy that got us through these these last two series?
Well, the way I look at this is it's the exact opposite of a Sanchez-Tebow situation where you have two terrible quarterbacks. Here you have two serviceable, good goaltenders. So, you really can't go wrong.
You go with the hot goaltender, right?
If one guy gets shaky and starts to, maybe let in a couple of weak goals, don't hesitate to pull him and put the other guy in. And as a coach, this is the best situation you can be in because you can't be wrong.
Yeah, you just go with the hot hand, right? You got the hotter goaltending going on.
That's the best way to go.
Now, there is one more hockey note I wanted to bring up to you before we let you go, and I want to get your opinion on it. What do you think of the hiring of Patrick Waugh as the new Avalanche coach?
Well, we'll see. It's tough transition for NHL players who are that good to become coaches. It's. I wouldn't say it's a bad move PR-wise, but we got to see what he does as far as the systems go. And
has he been an assistant coach anywhere, or has he been? I mean, that's something I don't know. So maybe you would know. I haven't heard about it.
You don't just get hired like Wayne Gretzky got hired just as a coach, and maybe just because you're Patrick Waugh. But I would have to think that he worked up through somewhere. Not that I know off the top of my head. I haven't really looked into it too much. But if you look at like Wayne Gretzky, the greatest players ever, when he went to coach Phoenix, he was a terrible coach. So when it comes to players that were great players becoming coaches, it's hard to say until you actually see it. Like Adam Oates, he's a great coach.
Apparently, Waugh was serving as the coach and general manager for the Quebec Remparts.
Which has to be their minor league.
It's the Quebec Major Junior Hockey League.
Right, the QMJHL. That's a pretty good league, man. A lot of guys go to the draft right out of that league. So he's been working with young players who are prospects to the NHL. And that could be good in Colorado because they have an extremely young team. One of the things about Colorado, my brother was actually sitting down with the Dallas Stars coach before he got let go. And they were talking, about different teams in the NHL together. And the guy said, Colorado is one of the scary teams where some nights they come out like they're the Blackhawks, like they're the best team in the league. And then other nights they come out and it's just like, who are these guys? They stink, And a lot of that has to do with the young talent that they have. So if he can go ahead and groom that young talent, and he's been doing well with young talent already, then it should be just fine.
Yeah, he has won one Memorial Cup title with the Ramparts. That was back actually in 2006, though. But he does have a really good record coaching there with the young kids. He was 348 and 196. So.
And that's big because in the QMJHL, you're running the same systems as they are in the NHL. You're doing the same thing. So that means the systems were working. You're showing the guys the right way to run them, and he probably had the right group of players to get it done.
Sounds good, buddy. Well, we appreciate it. And, yeah, apparently he's working with former teammate turned executive Joe Sakic. And I guess they're now the new pretty much front office of the Avalanche.
That's got to make you happy if you're an Avalanche fan, though. I mean, with no results yet to go based off of, like, just the thought process of, like, two of our greatest players ever, two of our favorite, guys, to have them in our organization. Just because they were good on the ice doesn't mean they're going to be good in the office.
But that's the bottom line, though. Is just because they were good on the ice doesn't necessarily mean that's going to translate to good coaching. And that's what we'll have to wait and see.
As a Devils fan, I can relate to that because as soon as they put Scott Stevens behind the bench, I had a smile from ear to ear. Because that's the guy I want teaching my defense.
Yeah.
That's the guy I want showing guys how to blow people up on the blue line. So as for me, that was one of the greatest things I could have heard.
Yeah, you get excited as a fan. You're like, oh my, one of your childhood favorite, whatever it might be, doesn't guarantee success, but at least it gives fans something to be excited about going into the next season. And then, you hope as an organization everything unfolds the way you wanted it to. I mean, there's no guarantee to it, but you hope.
And let's put it this way: as long as the Devils keep Colin White as far away from the organization as possible, I'm the happiest guy in the world.
Well, Fife, man, we really appreciate you calling in and talk some hockey with us, man. Thank you very, very much.
No problem. Let me get back to work.
So real quick. You have Detroit winning tonight. Then you have them taking out the Kings and playing Pittsburgh in the Cup, and then Detroit beating Pittsburgh for the Stanley Cup.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Another 7 seed takes it home out of the West.